I travelled to the other side of the country to meet up with a man who worked in covert operations in the 60s and was at the Ambassador Hotel that night. David Rayburn had been shown the photograph of Morales and remembered seeing him there.
Do you think that's the same man that you saw in the photograph?
Oh yeah, that's him. I didn't see him in the ballroom. I saw him out in the lobby area. In fact, I probably saw him several times. He was in and out.
I just want you to have a look at this photograph. The two men in the center. This photograph was taken, I think, a couple of hours before the assassination. So we're just looking at the two figures here in the middle. I just wonder if you saw either of those men that night.
This man here, the bald one,
yeah,
I think he was talking to Morales at one time. It's like he was standing talking to him.
If Campbell was the man on the left of the photograph, who was the guy on the right? I went back to the East Coast to meet a lawyer at Cornell University, Ed Lopez. In 1978, he was a 23-year-old investigator for the Congressional Committee looking into the JFK assassination. I thought he might know our third man.
Let me just take you back a minute. Here we were, a Congressional Committee, investigating who might have killed a president back in 1963. As you know, the majority of the American public at the time thought there had been a conspiracy.
The man the CIA called out of retirement to work as their liaison to the House Select Committee on Assassinations was George Ioannidis. He never disclosed he worked as Chief of Psychological Warfare Operations at the CIA's Miami base in 1963.
I saw George Ioannidis practically every day for months. George Ioannidis was the guy who was supposed to be our point person. But when we got down to work, he was all business. What we could see, what we couldn't see, why we could see something, why we couldn't see something, why it was redacted, why it wasn't redacted.
Let me now show you a photograph that was taken in the Ambassador Hotel the night Robert Kennedy died. And I'd like you to look at the figure on the right center frame.
Well, when I look at this picture, the guy is young and in shape, always standing, stands erect. It's the way I remember him being. The glasses, his hair slightly receding. At the time, it was dark. By the time that I got to meet him, it was graying. But it's just, maybe you just look at him and you say, this is the guy that I spent many hours with at Langley. This is George Ioannidis.
Not everyone I spoke to could identify our three CIA agents. I interviewed Tom Clines and Ed Wilson, both former agents and close colleagues of David Morales. They said I and all the others were mistaken, but they weren't willing to go on camera. Could there be an innocent explanation for the presence of these three CIA agents at the Ambassador Hotel that night?
Is David Morales a suitable figure to protect Bobby Kennedy?
No. No, I mean, in my wildest imagination, I couldn't imagine assigning David Morales to protect any of the Kennedys.
Suspicion? High suspicion. Yes, I can't deny that. So, why they were doing the things that they were doing, I'm surprised that was never investigated.
What do you think needs to be done now?
Well, I think the key people at the CIA need to go back to anybody who might have been around back then. Bring them in and interview them. Ask, is this Gordon Campbell? Is this George Ioannidis? Did you know about any operation going on? If you didn't, then why the hell were they there?
After so many interviews and some conflicting testimony, my gut feeling is that still these three senior CIA operatives were the men behind the assassination. Who were these men and why were they at the hotel that night? The CIA and the Los Angeles Police Department owe the public an explanation before the truth behind the Robert Kennedy assassination is lost to history.
There are some who talk about my youth. It is true I am younger than many who have run for president, and older than many of those who founded this country. Whatever my years, however, I would gladly match my experience with that of others who have aspired to the presidency. And after all, we are still a young country.
If you'd like to watch that film again, it's on our website. Do tell us whether you're convinced by the identifications. Shane O'Sullivan, who is the author of that piece, is with us here.
Indication that they looked in a lot of places, but they didn't look in the correct places during the original investigation.
Now, formally, I believe the CIA have said what about these guys? They say they don't comment.
You know, I mean, the comment you'd expect, that they can't go into previous operatives' identities, and that also they have no domestic jurisdiction. So the question that we're asking is, we have interviewed various people who knew these men well. They say that they're the men in the photographs, so we're asking the CIA and the Los Angeles Police Department to address that question. You know, is this the men we think they are, and why are they there?
Why do you think they were there?
Well, I don't think there's any credible explanation for why they would be there if they are CIA operatives, and that's the question that we're trying to clear up. They wouldn't have been Kennedy's security if you know the men's backgrounds. They'd have professed hatred of the Kennedys. Morales made the comment that we listened to, that he was in Dallas in '63 and Los Angeles in '68.
You don't get any anxiety about potential libel suits?
Well, we know that Morales died in 1978, just weeks before he was due to be called before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Janides died in 1990. Gordon Campbell may still be out there. So, yeah, a libel suit is a possibility, but then we also would have discovery in terms of showing how important this material is.
Assuming there is much more to it than the straight Sirhan story, do you think we'll ever get to the bottom of it?
I think it's important that we do. I mean, there's a guy called Paul Schrade who was walking behind Kennedy on the night, and he was shot in the head, and he's been one of the leading campaigners to reopen the case for years because of the second gun theory and various doubts that there have been around. So I think this evidence is quite important because it's the first time that we've actually showed a CIA presence on the night at a domestic assassination, and it's important that we get some answers to this from the relevant authorities.
Shane O'Sullivan, thank you. Coming up on the programme.